you very much. I like your books too.
Very Hawaiian.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah. And Sonny, you're there. And Glenn's there, I see. And Leon,
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here, Prof. I'm here.
Good. Aloha.
Let's see your face, Johnson.
All right.
Please let's activate our cameras.
All right. I was just strolling down home.
Hi, Glenn.
From somewhere. So,
hi, Sonny. Yeah.
I want to sit down first so that I can take part. So I'm about to sit down.
Can you please activate your camera?
Good.
It's kind of dark.
All right, we're good now. We're good.
Yeah, I'm a big. Oh, good. Okay, I'm a big fan of your book, Professor Ken. It's very good from years ago. I picked that up, and I like it in story form, very humorous, and it gets across to people some basic ideas that are normally hard to get across to people, and I liked it that way.
Great. Thank you. I'm really, I'm delighted that you feel that way.
And the reason and the reason I suggested they turn off the videos earlier is because sometimes it interferes with the audio. It looks like we have a good connection today, but in Africa, some places the internet is very bad. And that's why normally they don't, sometimes have the video on.
Yeah. Okay, the video is just too heavy up. Okay, I understand. Good.
Sorry, no. I'm sorry. Okay. I think
these are the
entries.
book in various languages here, and I think we have the Kiswahili edition that was published in Kenya. Yeah.
Wow, that's nice.
That's amazing. Yeah, very nice.
I didn't know we have that of Swahili. I had some of my friend who was asking of the Swahili language. I said I'll get across to you. I didn't know we have that, but good to know. I'll try to get a copy for that. Okay.
Yeah, sure. James Shikwati. I don't know if you know James Shikwati, but he was very active 10 years ago, and I think he is now too. But I have been out of touch with him a little bit.
All right.
I think he was at the African Liberty Forum.
Okay. Mr. Leon, can you?
All right. Just give me a view. I need to load something.
Now, and if you are interested in doing a local edition of some kind with the various languages there, if that would be helpful, please feel free. Go ahead.
All right. Well, it would be nice here to have it in. We have three major ethnic groups in Nigeria here, which is the Yoruba language, the Hausa's language, and the Igbo language. So those people, it could be translated, but we need to have people who truly understand that language. Maybe some of our people who are maybe old, like maybe 50 years old or something, because those are the people who understand the language very well and can easily translate. We can easily get people to do that. So it's easy. So maybe when we have the opportunity, we'll do that. I will let you know.
Great. Okay, good.
Yes,
Okay, so I think I'm going to mute almost right now. Okay. So hi everyone and welcome to the Liberty Show for today. And after a series of review of The Adventure of Jonathan Gullible by Professor Ken Schoolland, we are here today to actually discuss with the author himself about what and how it all started and how the younger writers can actually learn something, one or two things in their writing career. But before we go into that proper, Prof did something on the book sometimes years ago, I think like 4 years ago. And if you can see my screen right now, it's showing, and I want us to just listen to it in like 5 minutes. It's like the overview of the adventure of Jonathan Gullible. And please stay tuned and let us watch this for the 4 minutes or thereabout.
Ansana. Eh. Yuna mujako voice.
Oh, what is happening? I think this is losing voice. Come in.
And with humor, it attracts an audience from all around. It was produced on radio first, and then
Okay, let's start from the beginning. I think it's working now.
as you may recall, we last left on a remote Pacific Island after his boat was tossed about by a terrific storm. It actually started off in radio because I was getting no response from direct economics commentary. Nobody likes that. I mean, the economists only talk to themselves. But I thought of trying the style of Herbert Travels or The Little Prince, because you know these styles of question and answer and probe very profound issues in very simple ways. And with humor, it attracts an audience from all around. It was produced on radio first, and then a friend at the Smartness Away organization said that he liked it, and we thought about publishing it as a book. And since then, it took off. It's about a young boy who is out sailing. Storm takes him off to a strange island, much like Lilliput in Gulliver's Travels by John Swift. And then he goes around the island exploring and asking questions of people. And they talk to him about the very strange things, such as when he first gets there, he sees this woman being dragged off by a couple burly men. And so he tries to help them, but they just brush him aside. He's just not able to take on the task. So he goes up the trail and finds this clearing where he finds a whole bunch of men beating on trees with sticks. He goes up to the man in charge and says, well help me rescue this woman. Oh, she's been arrested. Arrested for what? It looked like she was a criminal. Oh, she's been threatening the jobs of all these workers here. Well, how could she do that? Well, as you can see, we knock down trees by knocking them with sticks. It's going to take 100 men a good month to knock down a good-sized tree. But she came to work this morning with a sharp metal piece attached to the end of her stick, and she knocked down the tree all by herself in 1 hour. Why, clearly, this threat to our traditional employment had to be arrested. But couldn't these people then benefit by having knock down trees and then use the time that they saved to make tables, chairs, boats, and houses? The purpose of work in this society is not to have products and goods and services. The purpose of work is to have secure, unchanging employment. So in this manner, Jonathan Gullible goes throughout the island and finds some really strange and bizarre behavior, which really reflects the kind of stuff that's going on all the time in life today. The book has been translated in Farsi and published in Iran because the censors, the mullahs, thought, well, it's just a children's story, we'll pass it on. But it's the only way to get into a lot of countries. And it's the only way to probably get into American schools because the censors don't allow just a straight free market message. They have to clear it through all these levels of bureaucracy that clearly won't approve a free market message. I've had people from time to time say, oh, this book is great. Let's give out copies to all the legislators. There's the ones who really need it the most. And I think that's just a waste of paper. They're beyond hope. The real hope is, well, hopefully with the young people who are developing their ideas right now. And so now it's in 48 languages and 72 publications. 3 plays and have toured Europe and Africa. It's actually in process for a movie team. California, they're putting together a team of animators from DreamWorks and Warner Brothers and other places that have given them a lot of experience. Now they've come together and developed a business plan to actually make a movie out of it. I have a Harry Potter of the libertarian world, I would say. So I think the appeal of liberty in a fun way appeals to people of all ages, but they have to just have an open mind towards free markets and freedom.
All right, welcome back from that. I hope we all got that well. All right, Prof, we've just had how it all started with the adventure of Jonathan Gullible, and how the story started with a young man who wants to go actually on a voyage and all, and jumped in without even knowing anything that has, okay, Prof is sharing the screen.
Yeah, they started off in radio.
Oh, it started off of a radio. So this is how it started back then.
Exactly. 90-second radio spots. And they had to be short and quick and tell a humorous point for the audience to listen. You know, they didn't want to listen to just a straight commentary by an economist. They wanted to hear stories. And this is on a business radio station in Hawaii. And this woman, Flora Ling, was a great editor. And Sam Sloan, the guy here, he decided, he was with the president of Small Business Hawaii. He decided to publish it into a book. And then it later became published in, now it's 55 languages, because just this month we're going to have the Thai edition of the book that's published. And then the most successful play was the one that toured Africa through Adedayo Thomas. And I think he took a cast of about 20 students, and I think Roland was part of that crew, that performance crew once, that toured several universities in West Africa. And a lot of the editions have been published in audiobooks as well. It's won numerous awards and good recognition by a lot of economists around in various places as an excellent way for teaching economics education. And many institutes around the world have been very supportive of this project. It's a thing that brings about, I'd say the Friedrich Naumann Foundation has been the most helpful. They've published over a dozen editions of the book in various languages around the world. We've got some new kinds of illustrations that adapt it to different countries. We've got various editions even in many languages, in Romania and German and French, Polish, lots of languages around the world. We've gotten commentary edition in even in the English language. It's in various versions, a youth edition, a university edition, a commentary edition, and a Kindle edition. All of these are available online in various places. You may even recognize some of these people here. These were the people who performed the plays in Lagos, and I think they went as far as Accra and various countries there. Do you know any of these people here? Do they look familiar to you?
Yeah. The down one is Professor, is Mr. Adedayo Thomas.
Yes,
And,
yes.
The pictures are not really clear, so I don't. I know the team that did the show back then. So
yeah,
I know them.
And then it was also performed as plays in Slovakia for all the high schools of Slovakia. And on the right here are the musical productions that were produced in Kazakhstan and in Russia on radio through the work of others that turned it into a musical production. The Philosophy of Liberty is now also in 46 languages. That's the animated short of the epilogue of the book that was written as a sort of a summary of the philosophy. And then, of course, you know the story, the tale is it's really to take off on the ideas of Gulliver's Travels and The Little Prince, a style of asking questions to reveal the folly of the policies of the day. And they are, most importantly, trying to take humor and satire as a way of poking fun at the follies of the foolish policies of politicians to undermine their credibility and authority. Much of this I get from Friedrich Bastiat, this French economist of the 19th century, who made great fun of the policies of the day by mocking them in terms of, in the way of satire, like the banning the sun in order to prevent products from outside the country, like trade products from coming into a country. Also, I'm really impressed with a book that I read not long ago called Hammer and Tickle, Jokes That Brought Down the Soviet Union. It seems that the thing that the tyrants don't like the most is to be laughed at. And they send people off to prison who make jokes about them. At least that's what Stalin did all the time to people who made fun of them. But it was the most effective way at pointing out the foolishness of central planning and authoritarian governmental cultures. Had to be very brief and concise. And I was very pleased to have the help of some of my students in producing some of this material. Always asking questions and then answering these questions through, and in the commentary edition of the book that you have, there are a lot of questions in the back to ask the profound philosophical questions that relate, and it always has to do with the use of force. You know, when is the use of force accepted? People broadly accepted around the world, and they never challenge it. Would they use force themselves? Or is it, which they say, no, it's wrong to be using force by yourself. But then people turn it around and they say, well, it's okay if I ask a politician to do it for me. And people will tolerate a lot of terrible things that they would never do themselves simply by asking somebody else with a political hat on to do it for them. I've had a lot of help from people who produce this play. This has been not the production just of me, it's been production of hundreds of other people around the world who have produced these commentary editions. And the message is really derived from a lot of political philosophers and economists and people throughout history that have been very, very profound in their advocacy of liberty. And so I'm not really the originator of these ideas. These ideas I derived from my own reading of lots of other great minds, and just putting it into a story form. So that's why I think that you can enjoy this. Let me end with that and just open up to questions that you might have.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. That was a very brave and concise overview of what the book is all about, and it even answers most of the questions I have written down and all. It's even if you look at the comment section right now, great work, thank you. Your book is an inspiration, but all the same, I want to ask, looking at the first chapter of Adventure of Jonathan Gullible, the way it started, like you said, it's from inspiration from different books, but how do you bring that together? Sitting in the terrain, looking into the water, always imagining things. How does it like? How does it? Or what was it like when you were thinking of writing that?
Well, at the time I started this project many years ago in 1980. I was asked to write some just radio commentaries for the Libertarian Party of Hawaii about contemporary issues here in Hawaii. And so the writing of these episodes took place over 10 years. I had lots of time to think about it. But in those days, it was before there were computers. So I was writing by hand in pencil, 8 editions, at least 8 times of rewriting the story. And it took me hours to put together a story before I'd go on the radio. And everybody was kind of shocked when I went to this story form. At the time, I was dating a woman who I wanted to include in this discourse, and I thought, well, I'll have her involved with be the other voice of so that you had a back and forth voice on this. And it turned out really well. It was surprised everybody to have something so different as political commentary, but it was much appreciated. And people in other countries said, well, how long were you living in Poland for you to understand how things are done here? And I had to explain to them, well, I wasn't living in Poland. I was really living in Hawaii, but the issues are universal. The same kinds of things that affect the people in Hawaii are affecting the people in all countries of the world. And so that's why I also wrote the story to be at the turn of the last century, so that it would not be dated. It would not focus in on an issue that only we can identify with today. But instead, it has a broad application to almost anyone's situation in any time.
Okay, that was nice. So now, if I may ask this, what actually, well, how will I put it? Let me use a big word. I'm talking to a professor. What's the kryptonite when it comes to writing?
Well, I think actually the very finest of all human traits. I mean, people will say, well, what's the most important thing for human beings? And some people will say, well, it's love. And some other people will say their brilliance and intelligence. And other people will say their hard work and creativity. For me, I think the greatest human characteristic is a sense of humor, because it's the kind of thing that lets us see the world in such a different way, and really it takes down the terror, the frightening fear of the world, if we see it as a kind of maybe a kind of joke in a way. You could say that if there's one great gift from God, it's that we have a sense of humor and an ability to laugh and poke fun at our folly and to learn from it and grow from it. Because if we just suffer from our folly, there's no beauty in that.
All right, okay, that's good. So when you were showing the short presentation the other time, you made mention that the idea is a combination of great minds that you actually put together and turn into an amazing piece that we have access to today. If I may ask, what other authors are you friend with? And how did they, like, in one way or the other, accumulate into the adventure of Jonathan Gullible's success?
Well, I really like to give tribute to some of the minds that were the most influential for me. And let me again share my screen to highlight some of these important minds. And I'm sure Glenn can identify with a number of these people too. And I'm sorry that most of them are people that I've known from my reading and experience in the United States, but probably one of my earliest and profound influences was this woman here, Ayn Rand. She gave a great deal of power to the ideal of the importance of individualism, that you own your life, that you are the master of your life, and that you do the things to do based on your values, not as sacrifice to others. I'd have to say that another was Milton Friedman, who gave a great and humorous articulation to all the ideas about the free market and the most important things about free markets. His wife, Rose, and he actually wrote a great book called Free to Choose, articulating these things. But I read about him because he was a columnist, was regularly writing weekly commentaries in newspapers and magazines. Murray Rothbard was the first to give me an extremely clear sense of what the libertarian message was and how it presented a nice and a beautiful free market alternative to the way the state operates in so many ways. I'd say that von Mises and Hayek were the two that gave the grounding of Austrian economics, but the ones who expressed it the best was Murray Rothbard. I thought he was very clear and easy to understand. And of course, a lot of other great minds, I think people will not know that some of the earliest thinking about leaving people alone, the laissez-faire ideal, was from Lao Tzu in China 2,000 years ago, who said that the best ruler is the one who is merely known. The more laws and rules there are, the more thieves and robbers there will be. Henry David Thoreau, Friedrich Bastiat, Henry Hazlitt, Julian Simon, Dostoevsky, John Locke, Adam Smith, Walter Block, and the son of Milton Friedman, David Friedman. All of these are, oh, and over here I'd have to say is Francois Quesnay, the early French physiocrat who articulated the notions of a laissez-faire, to let alone, is the best way that governments can approach their citizenry. So these are the roots of my thinking, and that's why I offer at the end of the book a list of recommended reading. And all of these guys have, and many more too. I'd say Walter Block is an outstanding economist today, talking about how government intervention often has unintended consequences and makes things worse than they would otherwise be. These are points that I like to say in the favor of these messages. It can't go without saying that I like to make use of this, not just through the writings, but through the work that my wife and I do. My wife is here. She's from China, experienced the worst of the Cultural Revolution, and became a natural individualist and championed liberty. And together we've been involved with a multitude of conferences. The Liberty International has had about 35 world conferences every year. This year we had to cancel our one in Colombia, but we hope to have it next year in Colombia. And actually, I'm hoping that with my connection with you guys, Leon, Sani, Roland, that maybe in the future we can have one of our world conferences in Nigeria, with a rallying point for people from across Africa to talk about the ideas of freedom. But we like to have also liberty camps for young people. We like to foster a lot of thinking about these ideas. And I'm really impressed with your radio show, Leon, and all the things that you've been doing in order to bring about a lot of thinking about from young people, because the first thing is to get the brain thinking differently and defensively against all of the things that have been imposed on them by the state through government's education systems and through the pressures from society, to think independently and to come and bring about a much better and prosperous world with your actions. So I'm very, very much impressed with what you guys are doing there. I love your T-shirts that you've got, peace, love, and liberty, all the logo of the Students for Liberty. And I imagine that a lot of you have been involved with Students for Liberty over the years. Is that right?
Yeah, virtually all of us are connected to Students for Liberty one way or the other. Some of us are alumni now, but we all pastor Students for Liberty to get into the liberty movement, basically.
When you say alumni, does that mean you have to graduate at a certain age and then you go on to other things?
Yeah, kind of. So that's a very nice one. We've known the people that actually influenced the writing of Jonathan Gullible and how they have done that, which is a very nice thing to know. But you said you started writing this book in 1988. Is that right?
I started writing it in 1980. I wrote it, started as radio commentaries in 1980. And it wasn't published until almost 9 years later as a book. And then it evolved many times into different versions. The first book only had 33 chapters in it, and they were very simple. But that's why I was very, very grateful to have the editing work of Flora Ling, who was an editor for Money Magazine and Forbes Magazine. She really gave it a literary style. I had the economics and the stories in mind, but she gave it a good literary style. And so the book kept expanding. Now it's over 40 chapters and much better written than it was originally. And so I'd say that it's good quality work now, but it took a long time to develop. And I don't know about all the translations. I don't speak these other languages, so I'm really just trusting that the translators have their heart into it and are intending to make the translation appropriate to the local community. Like they changed for the Kiswahili edition of the book, they changed the images of Jonathan Gullible to be more appropriate to Africa, and I was delighted about that. That's and so some of the illustrations in other countries are much improved and suited to their own country. Well, you can see in some places they just use a paperback style because they're going to have it be as a kiosk book in airports or something, and some others use it in the classroom. So the style is different in every country, and I'm really glad to have people just run with it. I don't take any income from all these books. I allow the people to be motivated by their own income revenue to take the book and do the best they can in that country. I help them as I can, but all of these have been independent projects.
Wow. Okay. Now, in the book, there's a lot of, shall I say, names. How do you pick your characters' names? How do you select your character names?
Good point. Well, Jonathan himself was derived from Jonathan Swift of Gulliver's Travels. And I was just picking that out of the air because Gullible, in a sense, was the style of the questioner. You know, in The Little Prince, I don't know if any of you have read The Little Prince, but I think it's one of the most simple and profound of young people's books. But in any case, it's all done by questions, you know, simple questions. And that's why I thought, well, Gullible he was from a gullible society where he was believing everything he was told, and now he's learning everything different. Alyssa, the girl that he meets in the story, is actually the name of Ayn Rand. Her Russian name before she left Russia and moved to the United States was Alyssa. And so I gave that name to the girlfriend in Jonathan Gullible. There are others. Mises is his cat. Well, that's named after Ludwig von Mises, the famous Austrian economist who wrote Human Action and really was one of the the cornerstones of the Austrian School of Economics, which is the most free market group of economists, in my view, the most accurate. Others, you know, he goes up onto the mountain, Hayek, which is named after Friedrich Hayek. He meets the great Condor, which is the Bard of Roth. Well, that's Rothbard.
Wow.
And he meets this elderly family, Milton and Rose. Well, that's Milton and Rose Friedman, their grandson, but actually named Davy after their in real life, their son, David Friedman. And yeah, so throughout I sprinkle names that, High Lord Ponzi, the chief of the Lord of Councils, is named Ponzi after a great Ponzi scheme. There was Charles Ponzi, who was a crook. He was a scoundrel because he was conning people out of their money through this big pyramid scheme. And I just thought that was appropriate to all governments because they're conning people out of their money through a giant scheme of fraud. So you I don't know. It's fun when you're writing stuff. You could just toss all kinds of names and images into the story, and other people will sort of pick up on it if they're familiar with that background. People who are familiar with Monty Python will find some allusions from time to time. Maybe Glenn is familiar with the Monty Python series, the comedy group from England.
I want to ask one, Lady Tweed. Who is Lady Tweed in real life?
Yes, okay. Lady Bess Tweed is a takeoff on Boss Tweed. In New York, in the middle of the 1800s, New York was known as a very, very corrupt city. I think it still is, but anyway, it was famous for a particular manipulator of elections and political favors that were handed out by a guy named Boss Tweed. Well, since it was a girl who was reading the lines in this story, I had to transform it into a woman. So I called her Bess Tweed instead of Boss Tweed, and to be able to do it as a story in Jonathan Gullible. Also in radio, you want to contrast your voices. So having a male and a female voice makes the contrast good and easy. Whereas if you have two male voices on radio, it doesn't show the sharp distinctions. It's a little harder for people to make out. So anyway, so it was a way of just doing the radio voices better. So I made it Boss Tweed, but that's a reference to this corrupt politician of 19th century New York.
Okay, thank you very much for that. I think I have two more questions. Audience should please start posting their question in the chat box. If you have any question for the author of The Adventure of Jonathan Gullible, Professor Ken Schoolland. Oh, is it? So let me ask this. If you actually are not a writer today, if you don't write, what will you do for work?
I still teach. I'm a professor of economics at Hawaii Pacific University, and I use this book in my classrooms. Actually, the book is much more popular than the textbook. Textbooks are dry and boring and too often just cater to all the biases that favor the state. You know, they call things taxes. I like to think of them as theft. By the way, I noticed that John Mugabe is on this conversation now too. I want to say hello to him. I haven't really had a chance to visit with him. But I'm delighted to see in the chat session here some of the other questions that pop up. I didn't notice that until just now. Anyway, so your question again was, what was your question again? I missed that.
Okay, if you didn't write,
Oh.
what will you do for work?
Well, I teach, and I consider teaching only half substance and the other half is theater. And I think that it's very important to be able to convey ideas and derive ideas and discuss ideas in the classroom. I derive a lot of joy from doing that, but I realize that to gain a broad audience, you need to go with the media in one way or another. One day, I hope we'll have a movie out of this or video productions.
Looking forward to that.
I just did the audio version of the book where I narrated the book, and a friend of mine, Matthew Bowler, put it together in a online audio version, so anyone can access that as well. And we used to do, well, until this disease came along, we used to travel a lot to various countries for speeches and summer camps and things with youth. Right now, the virus has shut things down for travel, but we're still doing this kind of presentation. I'm delighted, Leon, that you're doing this. This is a great forum, and I appreciate you inviting me to be a part of this. I think it's terrific that you're keeping your the minds of your young libertarians all active and fruitful through this medium.
Thank you very much, sir. Okay, now, you made mention that recently you just turned into audio version of the book, which is actually sweet. Someone like me, I don't actually read normal book. There was a day I and Sonny were just discussing, and I was like, you don't know how to read book. At least Prof has released a video or an audio version now. You can actually read and enjoy yourself. But seriously, what kind of work, Harlan, how hard was it to actually turn the book into an audio version?
Oh, to turn it into audio version was quite easy if you have a friend who's good at the technical side of it. I mean, all I had to do was I would read it over once so that I was familiar to it, and then I would turn on the recorder and then read it through, and he would allow me to backtrack every now and then when I made a mistake, and so then he would edit out all of those things and put it into a nice compact thing. It was not hard. I mean, it took maybe a week of time to do it, but it's about time I did it. And I was inspired to do it because there was another friend of mine, a guy that I just met on the internet, Trey Holcomb. I don't know if you've been to my website, JonathanGullible.com. And Trey says, well, I'm gonna read it and do a video of every chapter.
Every week.
Yeah, he did it.
I was following him at the point.
Yeah, it was great. I was so delighted that he did that, and it's fun because he's got sort of a folksy flair about him. He really believes in the message, and he's a teacher too, and decided that he wanted to have this available for his students. So, you know, I have to say, when we tried a movie project, I had a very considerable donation towards the production of a movie, but it did not go well because the people that were involved with it, well, I can't say too much about it, but it was a very bad experience. I feel like, yeah, so you really, really have to be careful. You can't just trust anybody you're working with to have their heart in the same place that yours is. So that did not materialize, but I think it's perfect for a movie production one day. I think it's perfect for theater because all the actors must have so much fun. I used to do a lot of plays when I lived up in Alaska. I was involved with either directing or performing in about 13 plays up in Alaska. And I loved theater. It's a lot of fun, and you have an outreach to other people in a different way. And I was so impressed with Adedayo Thomas's theatrical production in West Africa. They took a crew of about 25 people and went from city to city and went to various universities. They must have had a wonderful time. I wish I could have been there with them at the time.
maybe after the corona ends and we're taking the adventure of Jonathan Gullible back on the tour of Africa, taking it back to the road.
Yeah, that'd be wonderful.
We should invite you down to Africa to follow us around.
And the media, I mean, this video type of project also allows for a lot of opportunities that weren't available before. You know, so I think it's a real plus, Leon, that you're taking advantage of this stuff here. And I'm so impressed by the stuff I see on Facebook from time to time. John Mugabe seems to be just doing a whirlwind of good projects in Uganda. Yeah. And Sonny and Roland and you with this stuff. I only wish that I could get to know all the rest of you more, and I hopefully I can stay involved with you and we can have some fun. That's the thing, you know, you want to be promoting this stuff and having fun at it. There was a guy named Harry Brown who wrote a book called How I Found Freedom in an Unfree World. And it was how to separate yourself from all of the controls and tyranny of the world. And then he ran for president as the Libertarian Party presidential candidate. And I remember a guy asked him, well, I thought you said that if you want to find freedom in an unfree world, you get rid of politics and you don't have anything to do with it. He said, yes, but you didn't read the rest of my sentence. I said, you get out of politics in order to make yourself free, unless you're having fun. And if you're having fun at it, then go ahead and jump in and enjoy yourself.
I think I like that.
Don't let it get you down. Let it keep you inspired and laughing at the, you know, the great thing about that book, Hammer and Tickle, Jokes That Brought Down the Soviet Union, is that these people, they can't separate themselves from seeing the stupid folly of tyrants. And in those days, you know, Stalin would send someone who made a joke, he'd send him to prison for 20 years. If they laughed at the joke, he would send them to prison for 10 years. If they didn't report somebody who told the joke, they would send them to prison for 5 years. That's how serious these guys were affected by being laughed at. They hated that more than anything. And so it's the best way to undermine tyrants is to be able to laugh at them.
Yeah. That's a very good one. Okay, now my last question from my hand there, while we wait for audience to put their question in the comment section. My last question is, do you believe in writer's block?
Do I believe in what?
Writer's block.
Writer's block. A good question. Well, yes. The hardest word in anything that you write is the first word. Because once you write down that first word and get started at it, the rest just flows, you know. But and then revise it and change it. Actually, we're living in a miraculous world where we've got these computers and word processing. You can go back and change everything. You can make 1,000 changes in you know, just a few minutes. But in the old days, when I first wrote Jonathan Gullible, there weren't computers, and I had to do it all by pencil on a piece of paper. And I think I wrote 8 different editions for every 90-second radio spot to get it down right. It was harder to do, but it was so much fun. You know, my grandfather says that there are 3 things that are the ABCs of life. A, achievement. B, beauty. C, companionship. And the first one that won achievement is that great sense of productivity you get when you're writing or when you're producing something. It doesn't matter what you're producing, but it's that great sense of exhilaration you get from producing something in the world. So I'd say that that's one of the ABCs of life. And if it's hard doing it, it just makes it all the better than when you finish it. And I'm thrilled at the fact that Jonathan Gullible, this story that I wrote originally intending to just mock the politicians here in Hawaii, I'm astounded that it has reached an audience around the world. Actually, we're now in 55 languages, because this month we're going to have a Thai language edition of the book published, and that it's taken on a life of its own. It's in animation, it's in audio versions, and who would have ever guessed? So the first thing to do is just do that first step, write that first word, and the rest just follows much more easily after that. So yes, there's writer's block, and you got to just overcome that, having faith in the future.
I think that actually answered the next question that just popped onto my head right now. What would the advice you give to younger writers who are trying to follow in your footsteps? Because we always have one way or the other, one excuse or the other not to start, and all. Or is there any other thing you want to tell younger writers who are actually trying to go into writing fully, but one way or the other they are still chunked down and how?
Yeah, I think it helps to have buddies who give you encouragement and who work with you. You know, you can't do a play by yourself. You can write it, but then you need people to take on the roles. And like even in my radio commentary, there was a girlfriend at the time that was involved with this. I have to say that my far greater inspiration in recent years, I mean the past 32 years now, has been my wife, Lee, who has emerged from the Cultural Revolution in China. She's always been a great inspiration to me, and all of the things that I mean, she reinforces what I'm doing, and I find appreciation in what she's doing. And it's if you can find a good partner in life, that's probably one of the best things you could accomplish to achieve a continual movement and action in your life. It's too easy to be to drift off into comfort or ineffectiveness or even dissolution. But if you have a partner who's got your heart in mind, and who you can reinforce each other, it's a great thing. So I encourage that.
So basically, Professor Ken Schoolland, who happens to be Professor of Economics and a writer of a free market system book, on the Liberty Show with Leon tonight, I can say you have turned to relationship advice: get a better partner. Okay. It's a very nice thing to have you up here today. We know actually that it's very early at your side of the world, late on our side of the world, but really thank you for waking up early and getting yourself ready for this show today.
Thank you very much for accommodating to my time zone here. That was very nice of you. And I look forward to joining you
ahead, Prof.
in the future too. I look forward to joining you in the future in whatever your program is. I would like very much to be a participant. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So to our audience, please, if you have any question you want to ask Prof, please, either you raise up your hand so that I can unmute you, or just type it in the comment section. Do we have anybody? Okay, Glenn, all right. You should be able to unmute yourself.
Yeah, Professor, I was just wanted to confirm you'd be open to a new Korean edition, wouldn't you?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. The girl who produced the first Korean edition was a young girl who was actually introduced to it in Saipan. And she arranged with the publisher to do it. But since then, I've lost all contact with her. It was probably 15 years ago. And the publisher that published the book went out of business, and so it's just dormant, and there are no new copies around. So I would be more than happy to have a new language edition in Korean. Actually, I would love to have anyone in this audience here to consider a local production of the book, translation and publication of it. Now, I don't sponsor these things, and I don't have funds for it, but I will encourage it in every way possible to have it. And I don't take any revenues from it. It's too complicated and too difficult. I'm glad to encourage everybody with whatever to keep whatever revenue you're able to get from the book. But for the most part, I've provided all the international editions free of charge, to people.
That's what. Do we have any other person that have any question for Prof? Please, you can raise your hand so that I can ask you to unmute yourself. Do we have anyone else? Okay. It seems Prof's words tonight is so exhaustible that people don't even have any question. Except for the fact that I saw that Sony and Mugabe is trying to exchange partner, between Nigeria and Uganda. So,
well, I understand. I think John Mugabe has indicated an interest in a Luganda edition of the book. Is that right, John? Maybe he doesn't. He's muted right now, but
yeah. Yes, Professor. We are working on the Luganda version with some teachers, and I will be giving you the progress of it.
Great. I'm looking forward to that, and highly inspired by your work.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm humbled.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, greetings to Lee.
And I hope one day that we can have the Liberty International Conference right there in the heart of Africa. I don't know whether it would be Uganda or Lagos, but it wouldn't hurt to have a whole region involved with one in the future. This is how we do it. We do develop contacts with people in a particular region of the world. We've had 30, I think we're up to 36 conferences all around the world, as you've seen from this list before. Let's see here. There's this shows where we've had our conferences, and they've been everywhere. They've been here. They're indicated by color zone whether they've been in Europe. I think those are the ones in green. The Western Hemisphere in blue. One we had in Africa in Swaziland many years ago. More recently, we had one well, it's not listed here, but we participated in one in Morocco. But it seems to me that, and we've had a couple in Asia and in New Zealand. But now I think that Africa is a natural next step, because I'm so impressed with all the things that you guys are doing now. Africa seems to be taking off for the libertarian movement, especially through Students for Liberty. My daughter has participated in the conference in Kenya, in Nairobi. My wife has been to Nairobi at the conference, Africa Liberty Forum. I've not yet been to the Africa Liberty Forum, but I've been to Lagos and Accra. I don't know if you know Franklin Kujo in
Ghana.
In Ghana, yeah. And there's another guy, Kofi Africanus, who's I've affiliated with. Mustafa Cole, I know, in Sierra Leone. Any rate, I look forward to meeting all of you and having a good future relationship. I'm impressed with what you're doing. Do you know Juna Runga in Nairobi? she's been long a hero of mine for the things that she's been accomplishing for promotion of free markets.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much, Prof, for all that you said today and the fact that you're even here. Mr. John Mugabe, thank you very much. And for everything you've been doing in Uganda, I've been following your work for a while. And we hope working hand in hand and not stopping. One day, we're going to liberate Africa and make Africa a free world. Mr. Chike Donald, thank you very much for being here today. Chike Donald is the National Coordinator for South Nigeria for Students for Liberty. Mr. Sonny is the Regional Coordinator for Northern Nigeria for Students for Liberty Africa. Mr. Bayonle Fesobi is the Regional Coordinator and African Programs Intern for Liberty in Africa. Mr. Abdullahi Tijani, I think he's also a national coordinator. Yeah, national coordinator for Nigeria. But I think I will omit sorry, I don't know if I pronounced the name right. So that Joram Libertarian, I will ask you to unmute yourself so that we don't really know you, so that you can actually tell us who you are. Sorry, basically, because we love to know everyone. I'll be Prof. We love to know everyone, right? Exactly. So okay, good.
John.
Yeah, I'm privileged to be here for this wonderful interaction about liberty. You work with Action for Liberty and Economic Development from Uganda. Mugabe is my director, actually. Mugabe John. I'm always thrilled to read literature about libertarianism. I'm so happy. In 2018, of course, I much took concern about reading Adventures of Janus and Galibo, and it was so inspiring, interesting, and thrilling, because it was almost talking about what is happening in my country. I was like, this professor almost predicted what the nature of government is going on here. So thank you very much for the work you're doing. Leon, thank you very much for bringing such an interactive discussion. And everyone, Sans, happy to meet you again. We meet in Uganda when Liberty International organized in Kampala. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Great. Yeah.
All right. So, and when I was mentioning the name, I deliberately left Mr. Glenn for the finish line. Basically, he has been a very big support of the Liberty Show, and I don't know. I don't know how I can thank him and everything, because he has supported us, supported me in particular, morally, advised. Once he wakes up, he comes to my Facebook page. Okay, what is the next thing to do? How is the next thing to do it? To the extent that he even supported the show with some financial aspect. Really thank you for that, Mr. Glenn, and what all you do for Liberty. He also connected me to a radio show all the way from the United States, where I actually was able to talk on air to audience in the United States for like 10 minutes or thereabout. And that has actually yielded some changes, because we're getting more and more contacts to deal with day in, day out. And I wouldn't know or get to know Mr. Glenn if we didn't start this project or this book review on your book and with you. So, Mr. Glenn, I will try to ask you to unmute now and maybe just say one or two things before we wrap actually up the show.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm retired, so I have plenty of time, and I like to use it wisely, though. And I appreciate, having liberty and seeing the prosperity that can emerge from that. And I see you all doing good work, and I'm glad to help. I was also hoping near the end, maybe you could give Leon a screenshot near the end by un- opening up the videos. Now, I know that kind of taxes the audio a little bit, but maybe Leon can open up the videos so we can get a screenshot of everybody's face at the end. Thank you, Leon.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Glenn. Uh, okay, Mr. Sonny Johnson. Okay, now please, can we all get to a place where we can actually see light so that we can actually activate our video for a screenshot? Mr. Okay, Mr. Bayonli, thank you. Okay, Mr. Mugabe. Mr. Chike, please, can you please turn on your screen? Okay, Mr. Abdullahi, thank you for that. We're only waiting for Mr. Okay, Mr. Donald now. All right. Let's try just wave our hands as I take the picture. Okay. I said that my own hand cannot be. I won't move. All right. I think I have the screenshot now. Let me try and drop it here.
It's so good to see real human faces on this.
Okay, good. We have that now.
Okay, aloha. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much for being on the show today. My name is Leon, and I'm the host of the Liberty Show. This is the Liberty Show all the way from Africa, especially from Nigeria. And the idea of this show is to promote the idea of free market system, entrepreneurship, individual human rights, and everything that encompasses liberty to more audience in Africa and in the world at large, to make sure that we change the narrative of things and actually change our world for the better. This show needs sponsors and we need partners. Also, we need donors to actually do more and actually reach more people in our local community. Please, if you're watching this for the first time on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel, comment, let's hear your opinion about what we've been doing, how we can do better, or what we need to change. Subscribe to this channel, share this channel, comment on it, and please like our videos. It is important. The more you do this, the more we are able to get to more people and help more people to understand the ideals of liberty and how it affects our day-to-day activity. And please, don't forget to follow us on social media and on Facebook, it's at The Liberty Show with Leon, or you can just type The Liberty Show with Leon on Facebook. On Instagram and on Twitter, it's at The Liberty Show L, letter L, after the Liberty Show, at The Liberty Show L. Please follow us, like our pages, and don't worry. Whenever we update on anything, once you subscribe to this channel, you are going to get a notification. That's how it works. So thank you very much for the audience that are here today. I'm Prof. Thank you so very much. We really appreciate all what you've done and what you're doing to improve or teach liberty all around the globe. Mr. Glenn, thank you very much for all you've been doing and you are still doing. We really appreciate you. My colleagues on this call today, thank you very much for supporting this show. I couldn't do this without you guys. Thank you very much. And I believe that while we're doing this together, one day we are going to get to the destination we had in mind. So until next week that will come about on the Liberty Show with Leon, from here, bye for now.
Aloha.